This time, it is now 6:03. We're going to call the planning board to order. First of all, I just want to thank everybody who's came out for this meeting, as well. If you do attend or plan on speaking, please ensure that you did sign the paper up here beforehand, okay? For some reason you didn't, before you do speak, please do sign it, okay? First of all, we're just going to start off with the A&R that we have for East Street, and then we'll move into the public hearing, okay? Come on up, sure.
So I'm here to present board plans for East Street. We have East State Street, sorry. There's actually 6 plans here, but I don't know if you only need 4, and there's the Mylars. And the application is here.
I'll take the application.
Oh, yeah, there.
Where is this about?
This is down Federal Road going into Belchertown.
Okay, it's down the ways.
202 continues.
After
Chicopee
School Street. Yep.
Here's the application. So what is happening?
So this is the locust map. This is the entire parcel, and they're cutting this piece out, which is this.
So, yeah.
This is 202 heading east. So this is basically just turn it this way.
Okay.
That's a little section right there, which is this here.
This looks like I paint my numbers.
Yeah.
Connect the dots.
Oh, so we don't need our stamp because that's on there. Right?
Right.
We got our new stamp today too.
I don't see any issues.
You have the frontage and
Yeah.
everything?
Usually they show the whole piece cut out. So I don't know how you're going to
Record it.
Bob, I'm going to ask for your input on this. This should reflect the whole parcel.
Well, he can't put that on with all the property. So he's got the locus.
So how do
This
they
is
get out-
remaining land.
How do they record that?
They record this.
This does not need to be, well, it's going to have to be recorded, 2 different pieces.
But this is being separated from that piece, and that's what will get recorded.
They both have to be recorded. That's why we charge them for both. They both have to go to record. And that's why usually the plan shows
Both.
both.
But not in its entirety.
But it just shows the original lot and then what's being cut out.
They can't,
You could never put this on a sheet of paper that would equal this scale.
wouldn't have to, but
It's on the locus.
they're going to record the Mylar.
Correct.
Worst case scenario, they're going
comes
to kick,
back.
it comes
So it comes
back.
back.
But typically, it's always done that.
And on big parcels, though.
Okay. All right. Well, it's more of a recording thing. So if they're good with it, then I guess.
We're fine with it.
You have the
Yeah,
note.
we saw that already. Okay. I'm good with it.
Here's the pen for the Mylar.
For the Mylar.
Do you have a fee? Does anybody share on how much the fee was going to be?
250.
Okay.
You need a bigger paper.
Town of Granby.
Yes.
Should I give that to you?
It's good, I'm sure it will. I could do it even. Still have it real good. Still not sure? Let me sign. You have two.
We're supposed to be, we only need 4, but maybe they won't. I'm gonna sign this, and then let's start. While I'm signing.
So I'll sign next and then we'll do these. Are you gonna make that pen or are you gonna take a picture? All right, put on this chair.
Thank you, take care, have a good night. All set? All right, this time we're gonna continue the public hearing notice. I shall read it at this time. The Granby Planning Board will be holding the continued public hearing for consideration of the application from Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., 55 Technology Drive, Suite 102, Lowell, Mass. 01851 for a special permit and site plan approval for 0 Kendall Street as required under the Granby zoning bylaws on Wednesday, August 29, 2018 at 6 p.m. at the old library, top floor meeting room, 1 Library Lane, Granby, Mass. Note the date of the meeting has changed from what decided on at the July 23, 2018 Planning Board meeting, as there's a special meeting on August 27, 2018. So, just to reference to that, there was a original meeting scheduled for this past Monday, August 27th, but due to the town meeting at that time, our meeting had to be rescheduled, and that is tonight. So, in case there's any questions as to why it got pushed off a couple days. Okay? Sir?
Do you sign it?
Who's
Good evening. For the record, my name is Dean Smith. I'm the civil engineer with Borrego Solar.
Ask Dean to sign
I
it.
have our project developer, Matt Swansburg, with me, our energy storage division, Mike Conway, and one of our associate civil engineers, Charlie Short. I'm going to try and be brief and leave the maximum amount of time to address additional questions. I think we made some progress in the first meeting, answering some questions, but I know there's a lot still remaining. We did provide a revised set of plans. Since we appeared before the board previously, we've completed stormwater analysis, so that's included. We provided a peer reviewer, the deposit to cover their fees, and some plan revisions based on some of the comments that we heard last time. But there probably will be a few more once your peer reviewer has a chance to look at our site plan. So this is our latest site plan. It's very similar to what you saw before. The only things that have changed are we've added some water management areas based on the stormwater analysis that we did. We also did move the fence in adjacent to the racks and the road so that this wetland area is outside of our fenced area.
Okay.
So the total fenced area of our system went down by about 2 acres total. The amount of clearing is basically the same because we weren't going to be clearing too close to this wetland area. Okay? Also, now that our stormwater calculations are complete, we'll be filing our notice of intent with your local conservation commission too. So those public hearings are going to get started very soon as well. Those are the major changes that we made. Again, as I said, there's not a lot of change. We're mostly here because I know there were a lot of questions about the energy storage system that's part of our proposal, and just hoping to answer more questions from the board as well as the public.
I will remind the audience, if you do have a question or comment, that you please raise your hand, and I'll call on you before you pose a question, okay? We'll start with
And state your name.
and state your name as well.
Now, you said you made some changes to the stormwater?
Yes, we added some small treatment areas that are required based on the habitat analysis. There's one here and one in the northern part of the site. The pre and post discharges are very, very close. They don't go up or down a great deal. So we tried to keep it as close as it was to the pre-existing conditions so that we weren't affecting the residences at the base of the hill by putting more runoff on them, and also so that we weren't reducing it so much that we would affect the shallow water wells that people spoke of that are at some of those residences as well.
Can you explain how that works, though?
Sure. It's divided into a number of subcatchments, and they all flow in different directions. So the runoff will be flowing across basically the ground. There's not very much grading at all on our site, so the grades will remain virtually the same as they are beforehand, except for construction of the road. And I think there are 1 or 2 small spot grading areas. But it'll continue to flow across the surface of the ground, much as it does now. It's just the difference between coming through a forested area and what will be more of a meadow afterwards. Because the entire site, as I mentioned last time, will be seeded with native grass mixes. We allow them to grow pretty much to their maximum height, and we only mow a couple of times a year. So it still provides some filtration and whatnot. So there'll be an area there at the low point that catches that surface water as it's running off, retains it for a period of time, and then there's a culvert that will be discharging it. There's also an infiltration trench along with that to also help it percolate back into the ground in those areas.
So it operates more as a retention rather than a,
It's more of a detention
Detention.
than a retention, but yes, it's there to slow down the runoffs that are coming a little faster because of the difference between the forest and the meadow. So it slows that down so that the overall flow off of our site is equivalent to what it was before.
now does the site pretty much flow evenly? In other words,
There,
is everything flowing from one direction to the other, or is it?
there is a little bit of a ridge that divides it. Most of it does flow towards the east, a little bit more than half of it, but there are areas that flow to the west into this wetland area that's part of our site, and then off into the forested area to the west as well. One thing that I didn't mention to you, I know there were concerns about glare. So we're working with a sub-consultant, a noise, to prepare an FAA glare analysis for us. So that's underway. We'll have that for you before too long. And we're also working with a firm to prepare some visual analysis for us. We're hoping to talk with some of these residents that are nearby to get permission to come into their property so that we can get a more representative photo of what things would look like, perhaps from their backyard, when it's going to be close to our system, so that we can show what the before and after is, and then propose appropriate buffering so that the visual is blocked from those viewpoints.
So you're proposing another step in this before?
Yes, we're going to have to come back because the peer reviewer hasn't conducted their review
Understood.
yet. So we're expecting at least one more visit before you. So we're not anticipating being able to resolve all the questions tonight.
Roughly, how many properties does that affect as far as the visual you're
Well,
speaking to?
These properties along Kendall down here are downgrade. So we will be having some view sheds prepared from there, but they're low. There's a lot of trees between them and our system, and the system is up on top of the grade. So there's not really a whole lot of potential for view from that side, but we are preparing some views from there. The residence that sits back here does have a clearing in their backyard, so they're going to be rather close to our site. That's one of the ones that we'd like to get a better view from to prepare before and after, so that we can make sure that they're well buffered from our system. There's also at least one other home down here that appears to be a factor in that. So maybe they're here tonight and maybe we can coordinate on that. It would be best to be able to enter their property, take some representative photos. If we can't, we really won't be able to get to the areas that they would be concerned about. So we won't be able to make the best proposal. I mean, we'll still be able to make proposals for buffering if that's not a possibility. But we'd like to have a visual to show what that's going to look like before and after.
That would be as the board too, if those particular residents are not here tonight, I would like to see what actions you took to contact them as far as being on their property too.
Matt, do you know what's been tried so far to get a hold of this?
Sure. So letters have been sent out, I can confirm, to this particular abutter here and this abutter here. And one of my colleagues has been in touch with one of these abutters, and he may or may not have spoken to them ahead of this meeting yet, but we're trying to get in touch with them, and we'll make all of our efforts. And if
I just got that letter today.
okay, great. Well, if you want to meet me after the meeting and take your contact information, we can discuss the next steps from there, and anybody else.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Is it safe to say, on the east side of the project, the dark green is the slope area?
Yes.
In other words, the fence is gonna be at the top of the slope, which I assume is right where the lighter green meets the dark green?
It's very close to the top of the slope, because once it starts to fall off, then we have problems with our racking. So without having to do some more major surface grading in that area, we wouldn't be able to put up the racking. It only has certain tolerances to the changes in the topography. So it is very close to the top of the slope there. And it falls off even starting in the top of this lighter green area. The dark green is the vegetation that will remain in place. We are going to be cutting some trees outside the perimeter of our fence to prevent shading of the system. So the trees will be cut in that area and the stumps left in place. So the earth won't be disturbed, but the trees will be cut so that they don't shade the solar system.
And what does your topo plan reflect? Just the top of the hill or all the way down to Kendall
It
Street?
does come all the way down and covers down to the residences. It's included in our package, but I don't have that on my board. But there is a fairly steep grade once you get outside of our fence line on the east side, down to the residences that are more on the level of the.
Well, do you want to take one of those out of here? And that way the people can take a look?
Sure. They're welcome to look at that, and if we need to.
Or put it up on the board?
I'm not sure how much they'll be able to see, but they can come up and take a look at it and see the elevation. The top one is the original signed one, so let's skip one of the ones below.
You want to give me that?
So I'll just turn this to that,
Put it over here.
the page that shows the elevation.
Yeah, this way.
In case somebody wants to come up and see it in more detail.
Yes. Whoops.
C 4.0. That does show the topo, but C 4.0 will show you the areas where we are going to regrade it. So it'll show the proposed elevations in those areas.
If anybody wants to come up and take a look at this, please do so. Well, I'm just going to finish up the questions from the board, and we'll take questions from the audience, the town.
So where the Well, it didn't turn out in the calculations that somebody was driving a lot more this way, because the area beyond where the slip is coming this way is much smaller. It's more over here where things are going towards this, so that's where our small up here as well. But this was an increase in before and after, and we thought it was better to leave this more natural, so the flow spreads out the way it does now, comes down to the side. So that's a minimal change in before and after. These are they're stream borders, so they're spaced out through the system. They're located along this line. It's a little hard to see.
AC all the way through?
No.
Instead of the AC, one central area?
Right. The inverters are spaced out, and then we have to be transported out of the equipment area and down.
What's the city?
That's some grading to soften that slope a little bit. Mostly because most of our roads are
It's very steep. You're locked up in there?
Yeah, right.
There's that peak.
Yeah.
There's a bit of it, it's a little too steep.
It is. All right.
Yeah, we deal with that in a lot of places, and that's just it.
Like this detention up here, it's just that type of, this takes another dive down.
There is, there is part of our site plan, our series watershed plan, so and show basically how these flow, and show where it's divided off by because with water is flowing in one direction.
My son can't keep his driveway up here because of the pitch. So,
Yeah, it is rather steep coming down.
yeah.
So a little bit steep.
And then I get a lot of water for this area here. So there's something that's going to slow that down a little bit.
Well, it's going to remain pretty much the way that it is now. So it wasn't enough of a change in before and after that we needed to actually have a basin catch it. But it is going to be filtering into the grass, and it's just, it doesn't increase.
Hey, folks, can I just ask everybody, we've got more questions one at a time. That way, as a board, we know what your concerns are as well. We want to make sure that we're hearing what people are asking and what the answers are as well.
Do you want them to bring those to
Kathy first before they come to us.
But do you want them to bring it, or do you want me to just
I
bring
want
it?
them to bring it. So that way it's from their hands to Kathy.
We are showing clearing out to there. I'd have to talk to the designers about what the shading concerns are there. If you are more concerned about it, there's still going to be a substantial buffer on there with the wetland area.
Yeah, but in the winter, this is all foliage.
Is it all disinteresting there?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then we'll put some evergreen trees along that for visual buffering. That's the next step that we're looking at right now.
Hey, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to have this time so we can move forward. Sir. I just need everybody to sit down at this time. And we'll work our way around the room, and we'll make sure we get to everybody's question, and I'm sure they'll do their best to answer them as well. But as I said, I want to make sure that us as a board are hearing the questions that are being asked, as well as the answers that they're giving. So if anything needs to be resolved or looked at, that we know what's happening, because that's the important piece as well. So is the board all set? What are any other questions this time?
I'm good for the time being.
Okay. All right. So I'll start, work my way around the room. Whoever wants to go first, raise a hand. Any questions? Sir?
It's not my property.
All right, I need your name.
I'm still at
Yep.
Grove Kendall Street. Any of the homes that were too close, you said that you were trying to go in to take pictures or whatever to see exactly what would need to be done to keep everybody happy.
Right, we were hoping to get into the rear yard areas that would be closest to the system and take some representative photos there so that it's a better representation of what the view from those residences would be after we construct our system.
So, sorry, I didn't cut you off. So if it comes back and you're like, wow, it's a lot worse than we expected for the abutter, what's the solution?
Well, the normal screening that we would offer would be evergreen trees, closely spaced, fast growing. We select varieties that retain their foliage down close to the ground so that they provide good screening year round. They're planted close enough so that when they reach maturity that they'll provide more of a continuous buffer along there to provide a visual barrier. It's generally the best thing that can be done to block that. And the differences in the elevation are part of that consideration in terms of selecting, what size of tree and whatnot to plant. We don't plant real large trees to begin with because they're harder to get to set and be sustainable. So even if we select something in the 6 to 8 foot range at time of planting, we select things that will grow quickly. When you start getting into the 10 and 12 foot height on plant materials, the survivability rate goes way down. So in effect, you're coming back in and replacing them, and they're not really providing the buffering as soon as planting something smaller that can get set and grow
So
quickly.
if it didn't seem like a tree would be a solution that made sense or was working, could you adjust your boundary to give whoever's a little too close a little more room?
That would be another option, would be to adjust the tree clearing line to provide, natural buffering with the vegetation that's there. There are other options with solid fence, slats in the fence, that type of thing, that would provide the buffering. If the elevation differences are part of the problem, sometimes we'll construct a berm that the plantings are placed on to give it some additional height to provide the buffering that's necessary. So,
In those first couple houses, it seems like you kind of need that space there. Do you have any space? I know that's the most narrowest part of your development up top. Do you have any space that you could pull the fence back to give the residents that are that close a little more room?
there's not a lot right now to get to the ultimate system size that we need to for our financial models, but there are always options to work with. If there is something that's brought up as a concern, we can work with our designers to try and pull back from those areas or come up with a solution that's workable.
Thank you.
Another question?
Just a simple, I'm at 87 Kendall Street, Torrance, Gordon. And I thank you for all these diagrams and everything. I'm just a little bit lost. Where else would 87 be on that map? Can you just kind of point 87?
I'm not sure of the addresses right here.
I'm just trying to place where.
Are you on the turn? Because I think this is 44 and 50 up here.
50, yep.
So it would be down here near or just beyond.
Okay, because we do have a runoff stream that goes right along the edge of my property.
Okay, is that coming out of this wetland area
Yes,
perhaps?
yes.
Okay, so you're gonna be right in this vicinity. What we're trying to do there is not reduce the runoff greatly because it's providing a high period for the wetland system itself, but per our analysis, we're not increasing it. So we're trying to keep it pretty much the way that it is now. Because this perimeter is not going to be graded, the surface flows are going to remain much the same. The hydrology that's coming away from our site is going to be very much the same that it is right now. The only reason that we need the treatment areas that I'm talking about are because right now the rain is falling and going through that forested area where it'll be falling and coming across a tall grass meadow after we're done.
We see quite a bit of water from time to time.
Sorry.
We see quite a bit of flow from time to time.
It'll remain
depending on
pretty much the
circumstances.
same. I mean, our intent isn't to provide flood protection or to reduce flows. So under the state guidelines, we're not allowed to severely restrict that, as well as not being able to increase it.
Thank you. And is there any other questions at this time? Yes, sir.
Kevin Smith, 90 Kendall Street. So the panels are going to be up for 20 years, 25 years?
The lease is 20 years with one or two 5-year extensions. So they could be there as long as 30 years.
So, and then you guys take them down, dispose of them.
Right.
What if your company goes bankrupt?
There will be a surety or a bond in place with the town. It will be to the benefit of the town based on the estimated cost to decommission that at the end of life. So the town will hold that bond. If Borrego or the system owner goes away and is not there to decommission it properly, the town will be able to draw on those funds to get that work done. So it's there for the protection of the town and the residents in the area in that event. When it doesn't happen that way, the system owner would be responsible for removing all of the equipment, returning it as close to its pre-development state as possible. That wouldn't mean that we come in and replant trees everywhere, but we would take all of the equipment off-site, grade it out, make sure it's seeded for natural growth of native grasses and whatnot. So there would be an open field after that decommissioning is complete.
Sir?
I didn't make it, George Knight, 63 Kendall. I didn't make the last meeting, completely forgot about it. What direction are the panels going to be facing?
They're facing directly south.
Directly south?
Yes.
So the setting sun is going to be reflecting off then into the people's backyards?
Well, that's why we're doing a glare analysis. It hasn't been completed yet, but it'll be done based on the conditions that are normally looked at if this were to be constructed on an airport site. So there's an analysis tool that was developed by Sandia Laboratories that will calculate what times of the year, times of the day, glare could be a potential problem. It projects it in different ranges: a green range where there's no potential for a problem, a yellow range, which is more in a questionable range, and then a red range that is too much glare. It tends to be limited to certain seasons of the year, and is generally either right after sunrise in the morning hours or right before sunset in the evening. It usually, on the sites that I've seen the glare analysis for, it usually lasts for something on the order of 5 to 15 minutes. And it's hard to characterize that unless you're stationary and looking right at it during that period that it would be glare. It's not going to be that noticeable if you were passing by on the street or something like that and there was some glare visible. It would be for a very momentary period of time. It would be more like the glint that you might see off of a window on a building that has a glass facade, rather than in some areas of the state where you're driving towards a pond or a lake and there's a very significant glare. It's not to that degree. It's more like a glint off of a building.
And you mentioned you're putting that in a storage facility somewhere?
There is an energy storage facility
Where is that?
proposed. It is right with the equipment area, so it's right
I
here,
can't see, you got your papers in the way
right
here.
here, and here. Sorry. It's central to our site.
Oh,
There's
okay.
one here and another equipment area down here. And Mike is from our energy storage division, so if somebody has specific questions about that, I know there were some last time, we can talk about that. But they're located central. There is some noise produced by some of the equipment, so that separates it from the residences so that there's not a noise concern. and we are having a noise analysis done on the site. What the consultants will do is they'll come in and they'll place some monitoring equipment around the perimeter near these residences to measure what the sound levels are now. And then they'll calculate what additional sound this might add at different distances from the equipment area.
That would just be a hum, right?
It's a low hum, yes. There is some air conditioning equipment associated with the energy storage site, which would be similar to any air conditioning unit that you might hear. There are inverters that have a fan that's a low hum as well. So none of the solar equipment, though, would be operating after sunset because it's only producing power during the daylight hours. There would be some occasions where the AC is required after the sun has gone down.
Just the man in the back there. Good question. Right behind you. Yes. Yes.
Sorry. The last time we met, we talked about the benefit to the town, and that hadn't been
What's
established.
your name, please?
Leanne Weasel, 74 Kendall.
Thank you.
The last time we met, we talked about the benefit to the town, and that hadn't been established yet. So have we gotten any further as to, is there a monetary benefit for the town?
There will be what's called a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the town. It's generally negotiated with the town once we're close to the end of the permit process. It'll be negotiated with your Board of Selectmen. I don't think that Matt has reached out to them yet, but if there are other systems in town, I'm sure that the amounts will be similar to what was proposed on those other systems. But it's a back and forth negotiation with the town to establish those values.
And we actually did reach out to the town about this already, and the town advised us that after we receive, if we are to receive our permit from the board, they would then engage us in the conversation about the tax treatment of this project. But in the same vein as value to the town, I did note in the last meeting that there is additional value outside of the increased tax revenue that's generated by this project for a piece of property that's currently not generating much revenue for the town right now. This is going to be part of a community shared solar program. And so after this meeting, I'm going to leave a piece of paper here, and I encourage anybody that lives near the project, in town, and the surrounding towns to take advantage of these projects being located in these towns. They provide reduced electricity for residences, specifically for that reason. So there is true value here in addition to the tax revenue that will be generated. I also like to mention that this particular landowner, he's not currently here, and I don't want to speak for him, but he does own this property to generate a return on his investment. And he's going to look for what opportunities exist for him to generate a return. That might be single-family homes, that might be solar. He's decided to go with solar, and lucky for me, that's the case. But I do want to point out that after this meeting, we will have the opportunity to engage anybody here that wants to discuss signing up to receive community shared solar credits that will be generated by the system.
And just to note, I think that the selectmen will hold an open meeting.
That's correct.
Where the pilot agreement is discussed. So there'll be another open meeting that you would be able to attend and have your input into establishing those values as well.
So have we moved on with conservation at all yet, or is this still too early?
We just finished our stormwater calculations, which we need to be able to file with them. So within the next week, we're going to be filing a notice of intent with your Conservation Commission. So sometime in September, probably, will be the first public hearing with that. It goes through a similar public hearing process. So it'll be advertised in the local paper, it'll be noticed at the town hall. Abutters will be noticed for that hearing as well. So you'll be getting another notice in the mail when that process moves forward.
Leanne, you have a question? Yes.
I was just wondering how long, Brenda Knight, 63 Kendall, I was just wondering how long will it take before your cost and your income come together and you begin to earn money instead of spending?
I don't know if I know exactly what the return on investment
Well,
is.
then how did the you must have other projects.
We
So-
do. Borrego doesn't like to own the asset, so it's sold to a third party. There are developers that specifically come in and develop community energy projects because it's very specialized to be able to reach out to the community and get people to sign up for the discounted rates. They have to have a certain level of sign up before they're willing to go ahead with the construction. So they would have financial models that would be projecting their own return on investment. I would think that it does take some time because there's a fairly major capital investment here that they would have to recoup. So it wouldn't be returning a major profit right away. There's going to be a period of
I
time.
have no
before-
idea how many.
I'm not involved in that part. We could possibly contact some of our clients or some people that deal more with that in our office to find out what kind of a period there is generally for a return on investment.
1 second, sir. Leanne?
Bob Russo, when I was at Kendall. Concerning the storage facilities, I see we have some of it here. Could you please give us some more details about the structures, about the safety impact, about impact on fire departments?
Sure. So the energy storage system is a containerized lithium-ion energy storage system. It's sort of, the same type of batteries that are put in an electric car, Chevy Bolt, and Toyota Prius, that type of thing. They are containerized in a closed enclosure that has three levels of protection. The first is a sort of electronic 24/7 monitoring that takes inputs from each battery cell and has parameters that each of those cells operationally needs to stay within. Like, hey, you need to be within above this voltage and under this voltage. Your temperature needs to be above this temperature and below this temperature. And keeps the energy storage system operating the way that it should be in terms of each battery cell. The second layer of protection is the air conditioning, the HVAC system that keeps the ambient temperature within the container within an acceptable limit for the environment of those batteries. And then the final safety net on the whole thing is the internal fire suppression system, which is a flooding agent that floods the entire container if one of those parameters on the batteries were to go out of spec or alarm for any other reason.
How long did they last?
We're modeling 15 years for this energy storage system.
It could be half of the 30-year possible, wait, they would have to be replaced.
It could be, yeah. We may come in during an planned operations and maintenance event, and just like you would do with the remote control, replace the batteries that are in there.
And who's responsible for the cost involved in replacing?
We are.
Is that? You, sir?
So what you said, not you, I'm sorry, you. I forgot your terrible. 63 Kendall, George Knight. So you're mainly a design company and then somebody else comes in and does the construction?
We're basically a design build contractor. We'll be the general contractor for the construction as well as the designers. We also have an operation and maintenance division. And on most of the sites that we construct, we try very hard to get the contract with the system owner to operate and maintain it for the length of the life of the system. We can't guarantee that at this point because that would be up to the system owner at that time. So, but most like our performance in our O&M division, and most will sign a contract for operation and maintenance with us as well. So for most of these projects that we're talking about, we're involved from the early stages of permitting through the construction and on to the operating life of the system.
So who would the owner be?
Well, it would be one of a number of community energy projects, if this is going to be a community energy project. There are several that we work with. It's not really determined yet at this point. So we can't really specify that, but we work with a number of clients that do manage community energy projects. It takes a kind of a specialized talent to put together the pool of residents that's required to support a project of this nature. So they have the resources and the knowledge to be able to put that all together. It takes a lot of detailed management to do it.
If in 15 years after startup, an issue arises, how does the town of Granby or the residents of the town of Granby try to achieve some answers? Who's the point of contact? Is it Borrego?
Well, it might be. In that case, the system owner will be known towards the end of this. So that information can be provided to the town. Some towns condition our approvals that we must notify you prior to any transfer of ownership so that you know exactly who the responsible party is. So we are the responsible party. You'll know who our project manager is, who our site supervisor is through the course of construction. They'll be on site a lot. They will have their cell phone number known by the town staff. They'll be accessible. So if there's any kind of problem during construction, they'll be there to take care of it. Once it goes into operation, if we are the operation and maintenance entity, there will also be contacts that would be provided for those kinds of incidents. But the system itself has what's called a data acquisition system. So it's collecting system performance information, transmission, distribution into the distribution lines. It's all metered and measured at all times. If we're the ones that do it, we have an operations center at our Lowell office that has remote connections to all of the systems that we're operating. They have a whole bank of television screens where there are, on some of the sites, not all of them, there are cameras located there so they can have a visual of the site. They're getting data back at all times. If it goes out of a certain operating range, there'll be an alert that's sent to that operations center so that they can respond. If they need to dispatch somebody to take care of a problem, they can take care of that. If it's not something on that order, it might be something that can be handled remotely. But most of that happens is more about the system maybe underperforming what it's expected to do rather than being in kind of an emergency situation. So they would get alerts if it's not producing as much energy as what was projected. It does go up and down with cloud cover and differences in weather conditions, different times of the year, those kinds of things. So it could be an alert of that nature as well.
So you would sell it off to someone else?
Yes.
Or do you, I guess, lease it off to someone else who would maintain it?
Well,
sold to them.
The project will be on leased property from the property owner.
But
So
I mean, to who owns the solar panels? With that, but
the
who runs that
system
project?
owner, it would be the community energy company that would actually own the physical improvement. We would pay for those and construct them, but they would reimburse us to purchase it. So they would be the actual owners of the physical improvements. They would be the leaseholder at that point too. So they would eventually hold the lease with the property owner as well.
And they can retain them or another contractor and maintain it. It's up to them.
Yes, they generally don't do their own operation and maintenance. So we do it for a large percentage of our clients. We do the operations and maintenance.
So if, for instance, as you were saying before, that the notification would come to the town, if that was to be, they've sold it off to somebody else, with the town ever saying it as far as, I mean, the town looks at someone's safety record is not, and is concerned with their safety record as far as other things they've had. You know.
I haven't seen that particular level of condition in the neighborhood. The ones that I've seen have required notice a certain amount of time before the transfer becomes official, so that there is time to consider those kinds of factors. I haven't seen anything that has something that explicit written in that the town would have any kind of pre-approval or anything like that.
Joe Arabic, 88 Kendall Glen, to answer your question, if I were to sell my house to someone else, would the town have any say in it? No. And after they're done with the design bid build process, and they've proven operationally that it's functional, they can sell it to any group of investors they want, anywhere they want. They're not bound contractually to not sell it to anyone. So you could get foreign investors, you could get underfunded venture capitalists, you could get a whole slew of unsavory characters buying it, or you could get the best neighbors in the world. We're hoping for the best neighbors in the world if you sell it, but the world is drowning in good intentions.
That's why the town requires a bond, so that if it's not being maintained correctly or it's become a public safety hazard, we've got the funds to dismantle it.
Sir?
Phil Kraus, 80 Kendall Street. Is it public knowledge what the bond, the value of the bond?
The value of the bond would be what, at one point was agreed on what it would cost to decommission the solar panel farm. And that's something they get together, there's a factor in the system that they use to determine what it would cost, you know, if that ever happened.
We have provided a detailed cost estimate of those tasks, provided it to the town so that they can forward that to their peer reviewer, so they can do an engineering review of that. Sometimes there's some negotiation back and forth with them to establish the final amount. It normally is called out in the decision of the planning board. If this were to be approved, they will probably approve whatever that decommissioning amount is with their decision. So, and it's available in the public information when we file our applications. That all becomes public information. So it would be available here at the town to review.
Ma'am, in the back.
Leah, 74 Kendall. Can you explain the deforestation process, how that will work?
Well, when we clear the site, we're going to come in and cut trees first. So they'll be felled, left in place. Within the fence area, the stumps will be removed. So there will be earth disturbance during that part of the process. Outside the fence, those stumps will remain in place. So the earth won't be disturbed outside of that, but the tree will be cut down close to the ground. The tree bores, the timber from that, there's a variety of things that can happen to it. Part of it depends on what the owner's preferences are. Some owners want to take hardwoods to sell. In most cases on our sites, those trees will be ground into wood chips. Those wood chips will be placed around the perimeter of our project to provide additional filtration and erosion controls. So they're used for things like that on site. They're part of our erosion control plan generally to help filter out any, soils that might be washed away during a heavy rainstorm or something like that, so that it's caught in those wood chip berms before it can flow off of our site.
How long a period is that?
It doesn't take very long. It's a really quick process. I believe they can clear up to 4 acres a day. They can cut trees in about 4 acres a day. So it goes pretty quickly, and that's how they make their profits, is by doing it very quickly.
So the trees will come down quickly. That's a bit of a noisy process, so it will be very short term at the beginning of the process. And then the grinding creates some noise too. So they'll be operating during the allowable construction periods that the town has established. We don't work on the weekend. Some towns do allow us, if we're falling behind on the schedules, to request weekend work, but we generally work Monday through Friday on the construction.
Now, there's large boulders, any of us who build the houses around there knows that. How are those gonna be handled? Is there gonna be blasting? How are we gonna?
We're not proposing any blasting. Massachusetts is a state that has a lot of rocky soils.
It's not rocks, it's boulders.
Well, yeah, and we've worked on those kinds of sites. If it was absolutely too large to move out of the way, it might have to be broken up, but that's not generally the size. The equipment that's on site is able to move some pretty large rocks. So those would be placed around the perimeter of our fence, so that they're out of the main solar array area, but they're still on our site. I haven't worked on a site where any of that is removed from the site. We try and limit import or export of any materials from the site, so that there's not a long line of trucks that are bringing fill materials onto the site or taking those kinds of materials away. We find space on the site to place those where they're out of the way and in a safe location.
We asked you when we were up front about the access road. Did I see on there that it's going to be 14 feet wide? Or that allow a 14-foot wide vehicle?
That's what we're proposing, the 14-foot wide access. We'll have to coordinate with your local fire department to make sure that that's going to be acceptable to them. It generally is acceptable. We design our curves so that they're gentle enough for the equipment that the fire department would use to come up that grade and into our site.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but didn't you say the road there was going to be good enough and you weren't going to have to change it much? It's not a 14.
No, there'll be improvements. I think maybe what we were speaking about is that we're going to try to the maximum extent that we can to use that clearing that does come up the grade through there. Okay. There's a run of trees that have been cleared down through there. There's an existing utility easement that comes through there. We're working with the utility company to get approvals to cross that. The town indicated that they'd like us to maximize the use of that area that's already cleared so that we can minimize any additional clearing that we would need to do down near that entrance area.
And with all that, it seems like you already studied it. You don't need to collect water at the bottom of the hill from the road.
There will be, I didn't point it out before, but there is a small detention area down there at the base of the grade.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, sorry, I missed it when I was looking before, but there are pretty small areas.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Joe Shalou, 140 School Street. I haven't signed the sheet, but I'll do it at the end of the meeting here. I didn't expect it to speak, but I did have a question. Since it's up on top of the hill, a lot of metal racking, what is the protection against lightning strikes? We've had some pretty good sequences of lightning coming through. Can that overload the battery protection circuits? Can that start a fire in the grass area? And if that starts burning and starts melting the solar panels and that runs into the neighbors down below, what protections are going to be there from lightning strikes that's on top of the hill? And all metal.
I might have to let Mike answer that in more detail, but our racks are approximately 9 feet at their tallest point, so there's not any really tall structure that would be there.
Yeah, but it's on top of the hill, so you probably
It is on
largest
top of the
metal
hill.
thing that, so when this lightning hits, it's going to usually hit the highest.
Yeah, there are a number of electrical protections built into the design, and maybe Mike can speak to that a little bit more.
Sure. There's a set of certification standards that are done by the Underwriters Laboratory, UL. It's pretty good. Like even your, all your lamps and stuff for over there, UL certification. So the racking, what we refer to as the racking system, which is the sort of the mounting on which the panel sits, has a built-in electrical continuity and grounding system that's tested by a nationally recognized laboratory and certified by UL as a fully grounded assembly. So, from the frame of the panels, which is aluminum, down to the purlin that they sit on, and as they attach to the screw that digs down 9 feet into the ground, that full system is electrically continuous, such that if it's charged in any way, whether that's from lightning or from a malfunction in one of the panels or whatever else, that the path to ground through that racking system and through the ground screws is sufficient per the National Electric Code. So it's as if sometimes you see in electrical substations or switching yards large lightning rods. This is sort of another way of mitigating that. The whole, as you noted, with high elevation and the whole solar panel not having too many high points, the entire thing is sort of like a lightning rod. And so the entire solar array and the energy storage system is designed such that it can pass charges through it with a low resistance path to ground.
And that's including lightning strikes. I'm just not worried about just the solar panel having a short that grounds that panel.
Including lightning strikes, yeah.
And the individual racks themselves are also separated. So they don't touch each other. There's a separation from rack to rack.
Right. Other than the electrical wires that run from each panel,
right?
Through the battery circuit,
there is wiring.
Going to be the best conductor you've got right there. So that's why I was a little bit concerned.
Yeah, based on our last meeting, we had a list of items that you were going to bring back to us. Now, the topo is, you brought that back.
Yeah,
that's in the package. Yeah. The ground screws, you were going to bring or show us some.
It is depicted on our detail.
Okay.
I haven't added anything additional to that. I wasn't able to get any samples to bring you, but we'll address that when we address the peer review comments, if that's acceptable to the board.
Stormwater design, sound dampening, you're still working on that.
We're still working on that because we want to have the full analysis to be able to appropriately provide that as necessary.
Is the construction controls and sequence laydowns all part of this
There
package?
is a sequence on the plans. If the board desires something separate from this, a separate sequencing plan or something more detailed, we're happy to provide that. But there is a construction phasing sequence.
So we.
What is the construction?
1 minute, please. 1 minute.
So that being said, what's left that you owe us? From our original meeting, what's that?
What was the wetland reports regarding conservation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be providing you with a full copy of our notice of intent submittal, so that'll include the wetland delineation report and all of that information.
Revised plan to fence off wetland areas, you've done that.
I'm just trying to make sure we've collected as much information as we need necessary now to start the peer review and to circulate it with a round table or to our other department heads, fire, police, DPW.
All of the standard bells and whistles that we usually provide to towns are included. If they see something missing, we're happy to provide that. So if we know who the engineer that's working for the peer reviewer is, we can coordinate directly with them or with your other town departments. I'm happy to provide anything additional that we have available that they feel like they need for their review.
The final report from National Grid.
We received word last week that we were 10 days out, so I'm expecting that next week we'll have that in hand. So by the time we're in front of you again, that should be a completed study.
I'd like some clarification from the board. I thought the peer reviewer was chosen by the applicant. Isn't that correct? We do not choose the peer reviewer.
It's, in other towns, it's usually chosen by the board. Most will
contact us to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. But I think the idea behind the peer review is that it's an independent review from us. So we're not generally involved in the choice of peer reviewer, but we do provide funds to pay them, which I brought with me tonight.
Excuse me, can we ask Susan? Susan's with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, our representative. How is it generally done?
Well, in another town that I'm working in, I've been one who has coordinated the peer review, brought them on board, and coordinated things between the town and the peer reviewer, and also the applicant.
And we'll do that. As far as choosing it, we've always allowed the applicant to choose from a preferred list that the town provides.
Okay, so you have a
Yes.
provider?
Yes.
We can certainly give you more input on that.
Okay.
I don't know that we have a conflict with a lot of firms out this way, so, but I'm happy to say these firms are okay and this one's out because we're working on a project with them somewhere else or something like that.
Apparently, it'll end up being coordinated through Susan. Is that what we're agreeing?
Well, first we'll get Kathy Leonard to send the list of approved peer reviewers to you, and we'll make sure you get a copy.
Yeah.
Then you can
Yeah,
fill.
we'd like to get it started soon so that they have time to complete their review. before
Right.
we come
You
back.
can actually even contact Kathy tomorrow if you wish. That way, instead of waiting for.
Somebody from your company is going to be seeing Kathy Leonard tomorrow to deliver this package to her for the, to start the town.
Right.
You want us to deliver that?
That's gonna be delivered to her, yes.
Okay, I'll take it back with me and we can FedEx it to her, if that's the case.
I have one other question, and I don't know that we broached on this subject. Is that land in, for tax purposes in 61A or B? Do we know that?
I'm still waiting for confirmation. I heard from the landowner that the property was previously in 61A, but in the last fiscal year, he didn't put it back into the 61A tax status. So that's what I last heard from him, and we'll have to follow up to make sure that that is actually the case.
So you put it back into regular?
So as far as I know, and again, we'll want to confirm this, it's currently taxed normally. It's not a 61A taxed property.
For those of us who don't know, what is 61A?
It's an agricultural exemption for land use that an owner can obtain. They get a reduced tax rate due to that. What normally happens if we do have a project that's on land that falls under that category for the reduced tax rates, it has to be offered for purchase back to the town. They have the first right of refusal. If they are not interested, then there is a calculation made and a series of back taxes that will be paid to remove it from 61A, and then it'll be taxed as normal property after that. But we would make those arrangements at the time of approval. Well, actually, we do it at the time of building permit application. So it has to be removed from 61A before you can apply for a building permit to actually construct this system.
So has the town exempted out of its right of first refusal?
We haven't gotten to that stage yet. As Matt was saying, we're not certain that it's still under 61A tax rates. So that has to be established. That would all happen after this board's approval. So it would happen between then and the time that we would apply for a building permit for the site.
Bill Kraus, 80 Kendall Street. I'm sorry, what's your name? Matt. Matt, when you were speaking earlier, you stated that the landowner shared with you that they wanted to start getting some return on their investment in the land, that they might, if they didn't get this, they'd want to build single-family homes or something to get their return back. In 61A, he couldn't do that anyways, could he?
We always had the option to take the property out of 61A.
So So we'd have to do the same thing.
It would go through a similar process where they'd have to pay a certain amount of back taxes to remove it from 61A before it could be developed for residential use as well.
There's certain requirements that happen.
Obviously, you will benefit from putting in the 61A, but obviously if you're taking it out to also benefit, there are, if you will, consequences that go with that. As you said, you know, some of it is back taxes for, 5 years, what it would have cost at that point too. So there is a procedure that takes place for when someone wants to take it out of 61A.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the residents? Yes, sir.
Kevin Smith, 90 Kent Street. Back to the whole water and everything. Like 2 weeks ago, we had some really good rain. It actually washed a bunch of crud into my yard, out of my yard, into the road. Now, you talked about being a good neighbor before, the last time you were here. If your drainage or distribution of water doesn't work the way you guys' projections came out, and you're gonna sell this property, or the lease, or the panels, who's gonna correct that situation?
It would be whoever owned the system at that point. If it's during the construction period, it would be us.
It could be 5 to 10 years down the road.
If it's 5 or 10 years down the road, it would be the owner or whoever operates and maintains the site for them. So they would be the responsible parties. The town is going to be aware of who that is and who should be contacted in that kind of instance.
There shouldn't be any kind of account or trust or bond set up through the town, like a decommission of the panels for if they go under to fix people's properties.
Typically that doesn't happen to this board. We know that if somebody built a house next to you, and, a year or so later, there was some issues with runoff, that would have to, I believe it would have to be settled privately.
You stated that if you sold it to whoever, that you might still maintain it. So if you were in charge of maintaining it and something was happening on his property, would that fall under your maintenance, that you would rectify that?
If he came to us with evidence that we were affecting his property, of course we would reach out to him and try to resolve that situation. I think before it gets that far down the road, you're going to have a very good indication of whether or not this is going to be affecting your property. We're very careful with our analysis. We're very confident in it. So we don't think that we're going to create any problems for our neighbors here. Borrego, as I mentioned, likes to be a good neighbor. So as long as we're involved, we're going to be in contact, be able to be contacted by the adjacent property owners. So I've been involved with other projects that we have under operation and maintenance, and we've reached out with, landscaping replacements, fence repairs, any sort of thing that a neighbor brings to our attention. So we've been responsive in other cases. I guess that's all that I can say to you, is that we have been responsive to those kinds of conditions.
But more I guess my point was, what's the scope of maintenance? Say it's your competitor maintaining it, maybe they're not as willing to be neighbor friendly as you guys. Is that, when they have the maintenance contract, are they supposed to be mowing the grass and checking to make sure the chain link's secure? Or what do they do, what don't they do?
That's all part of the conditions that are placed by this board, if in fact it's approved. Those conditions will all be outlined.
And we have provided our standard operation and maintenance protocol to the board. They can make that part of their decision. They can ask us to be more detailed, to schedule additional inspections over and above what we have. But it covers vegetation maintenance, which would be landscape buffers, as well as coming in periodically to mow within the system boundaries, inspections of water management treatment facilities, inspections of the roadway, all of the electrical equipment. So there are regular inspections scheduled for that.
To your point, or someone's point, if a swale eroded and was causing problems below it at one of your properties during the inspection, they would have to repair that. They have to maintain the conditions that were set. So- Pardon me?
Which inspection? The inspection before they're allowed to go online, or a year inspection?
Correct. So that if something like that happened and it's found that a swale blew out or something eroded and it's not operating according to the way it was designed, they would be required to repair it.
What about when it damaged? Are they required to repair that too?
I couldn't speak to that. That would be a civil issue, but based on what I just said, they would be required to repair it and maintain it the way it was permitted to do, or they would be hit with a cease and desist until it was.
Yes, sir. Bob Russo, 107 Ken. It kind of begs the question now in terms of impact on homeowners insurance. Do you have any experience where homeowners insurance have been raised because of a facility like this? I mean, obviously, some people are more directly impacted as opposed to others who are not. It can become an issue.
I have not seen any evidence to that degree. This is a low impact project. Even though we're clearing a large area of land, we're not impacting things that would be impacted by normal development. If a residence was constructed here, there would be a much larger area of impervious surface created that would have to have more significant water management before it was discharged off-site. There would be sewage generated, there'd be water use, there'd be other noise concerns, there'd be traffic. So we're not creating any of those kinds of impacts to the neighbors, and there isn't any kind of undue hazard or risk that we would be exposing the neighbors to that would affect insurance rates or anything like that.
The ground is pretty impervious out there, I think. I have documented the same rainstorms that Kevin was talking about that washed away a whole bunch of his driveway into my front yard into my neighbor across the street, and all along the street. I don't see how taking out 30 more acres of buffer trees that soak up that water is going to be good for us on such a steep slope.
Well,
I know you're saying you're going to go by the state minimums or the state standards and put in the swales. I think the swales need to be more here because of the slope of the property and the availability of ledge and boulders. My house is 20 yards forward of where I wanted it because of the ledge there. I just couldn't build, and if water gets on that ledge, it just shoots right down. It can't go through the solid rock.
Right, that's understandable. And the soils have all been mapped here. So it's actually a national standard that these designs are by. Each soil type has a profile, it has a permeability established for it, it considers the rocky conditions, it considers the slope. It's all wrapped up into the HydroCAD analysis that we do for the stormwater calculations.
So can you hire someone like GZA to come in and do a soil density analysis?
There will be geotechnical testing done on the site. When we get a comfortable feeling that it looks like the project is moving forward, there will be on-site testing. There'll be test pits. There'll be pull tests to establish design parameters for the racking system and their foundations. There might be percolation testing in the areas where our detention areas are proposed to make sure that it's going to meet the requirements that we need for our design, so that the right amount of water will permeate into the ground rather than having to be discharged from the system. So those things will be tested on site and confirmed.
So what happens when you find this image underneath the forest litter and the debris that's already there, the natural debris?
Well, from our standpoint, it might mean that we have to pre-drill for screws, but the ground screws on the racking system that we use are very forgiving to soil conditions. Cobble and whatnot don't cause a problem. If there were bedrock that was significant, it's usually rock outcroppings or something like that that would already have been evident in our survey of the site. Bedrock, we would just need to pre-drill so that our foundations could go through it and provide the appropriate structural design for the racking system.
Is there any other questions from the residents at this time? Are there any other questions from the board?
Not specifically for the applicant. What I would like to start and discuss is the next step before I assume we're going to continue this.
Yes.
Getting them the peer review list, let them choose.
Is Kathy in tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes.
I can reach out to her and get that list so that we can get that.
And then, how long do you think that's going to take?
Well, it depends on the peer reviewer. Generally, it takes at least 2 weeks. It would depend partly on their workload. It would be in the 2 to 4 week range, but generally closer to 2 weeks.
I understand that part, but I mean, as far as you choosing, are you going to go out to bid or?
Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. No. We would select it based more on if we had a conflict or not.
So then, the board needs to provide them with a list of points that we want addressed by the peer reviewer.
Then you need to set up a contract with them first. Always different steps take a little time.
So you should find out who their peer review is going to be.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we need to provide a list of other than the general review, if there's anything in addition to that we want.
Should we wait until we hear from all the other boards and committees that are involved with this project here in town to see what they may request as well, rather than us cherry picking and creating a list where we may have omitted, neglected?
Well, it's going to be a process. They're going to come to us with probably some questions for you or calculations. And so what I'm saying is what we could do is do it at the same time. Get the peer reviewer going, get them started. And then if there's additional questions or concerns by us or any other board in town or department head, we can add them to look into
That
it.
would be more customary. The peer reviewer would set out from the beginning to review our plan submittal and other supporting information against the town's bylaws and the requirements that you already have outlined there for the conditions that our project has to meet to be able to be approved by your board. So they already have their map set out for them in terms of the items that need to be provided and what standards they're reviewing it against. If they've performed other reviews for you in the past, it would be very similar to what they've done for you already. So the map is pretty much there in your bylaws by establishing what's required for our site plan review and our special permit.
So now we have to discuss continuing the public hearing.
Yes. Got a date.
So you are requesting an extension or another public hearing. It's not the board requesting it.
Well, yeah, it would be necessary for you to be able to complete the design.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear for the minutes.
No, we are continuing the hearing. They're not, we're requesting it. We need more information, we need a peer review, we cannot make a decision tonight, so we need to continue the hearing.
How much time do you need?
Well, how often do you meet?
Twice a month, the second Monday of each month.
We're going to have to continue it for each meeting. as we gather information. We
Right.
can't discuss this outside with the peer review or any information we get back from the peer reviewer outside a hearing.
I would say that a 1-month continuance would probably be acceptable for this first step.
For you to come back.
For us to come
But
back.
for our schedule, we're going to continue it to our next scheduled meeting.
Right, but I mean, for the public, this.
That would be the public.
Why would we
have
do
to
that, Jim? I don't think that's fair to the residents. If we're continuing it meeting to meeting to meeting, and we don't have everything in front of us, then there's no sense in the Borrega company showing up, nor the residents.
I request them Borrego to show up. Look, we can't discuss this outside a hearing, and if there's decisions to be made with the peer reviewer based on, they've got a.
Gotcha.
The meeting, follow I'm saying?
Yes,
Because
yes.
the meeting being continued, continue to a certain date where we'd
That
have to
makes
discuss
sense.
it. Because it's still a public hearing.
After the next one, we may say we can skip one. We won't need to discuss it until we get some more information back, but to be safe for us, while we're trying to get the ball rolling on the peer review, we should schedule it, continue the hearing to our next meeting.
September 10th.
Yes.
Would that be to the time certain?
Yes, it'd have to be at a specific time, too.
You want 6 o'clock or 6:15?
6:15.
I'll make a motion that we continue this public hearing to September 10th, 2018, at 6:15 PM here at the Carnegie Library.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure that check is in.
It should be underneath
We got
the
it.
first.
Check's there, good.
Thank you.
So now we need a motion to,
I'll make a motion to reconvene the planning board's regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Folks, I just have everybody's attention. If you're more to... Folks, the gavel. If I can ask, if you're more than welcome to stay and listen to the remainder of our meeting, but this time the public input has been continued to a next meeting. So if you don't, you have conversations, I would ask you if you could step outside the building so we can hear each other speak. Thank you.
The next meeting is going to be
September 10th.
September 10th at 6:15. Finally used the gavel. What do we have on our agenda?
That's it. Oh, no, we gotta talk.
What are you gonna do next?
He's filed.
Should we talk to, do we have anything to talk to Susan about?
I don't think so.
Maybe she's got something for us.
Do you have anything for us?
Run up, Susan.
Hey, folks. Folks, have your attention, if I can ask you if you just, again, if you can have conversations, they do exit the building because it's hard for us to hear each other as well as the video recorder as well. Thank you.
So what I have your permitting guide that we had an intern put together, so she just got it to me. I think she's got all the information in there, but I need to check it for, you know, accuracy. She is a graduate student at UMass, but, you know, she doesn't have full understanding or experience with all this. I think it needs some formatting, needs to be made to look a little better, but what I do like about it is that I think she did a nice job sort of combining or doing something in between the examples that we looked at, the Ludlow one that was quite long, as you recall, and the Amherst one that was just completely online. And so this version here starts with contact information for all the different departments and boards and commissions in town. Little information about, you know, where they're located and what their primary focus is. Then she has this chart that continues on multiple pages that is broken up basically by types of uses. So here's residential, and there are different types of residential uses, and then the dots are filled in about what kind of permit is required or may be required in the case, whether it be planning board, you know, highway department, department of health, all those things. There's some more general information about some other things that may be required as part of a development or approval process, such as Conservation Commission, things like that. And then there's some more specific information on each of the permitting processes, starting with subdivision and site plan. And she's developed these charts. This one looks a little too small, but this one's a little better, that show the timeline for and what's required at different times. I think that would be really helpful. And then in each section, there's also highlights of what is required for the application and the fees associated with that. So once it gets a little more refined, I'll get a copy to you folks to review for draft, and let me know if, you know, you can let me know if I'm missing anything else. And I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that at this point, but it seems like it's coming together.
Moving forward.
Yes. I do have one more question on the fees. If you're putting in the fees and we change our fees,
Then we'll have to change that. So, you know, that is, a lot of things are like that. You know,
Okay.
for example, contact information and
That's something
these
that's
things
going to be
just
on
need
our
to be.
website anyways, and then we'll have access to change it.
This will be, you'll have a Word version. You probably put a PDF version on your website so that other people
so we'll have
can
the Word
change it,
version
but
that we can
yeah,
change.
absolutely.
It'll be, I mean, if it, like anything, if we have a hard copy and it's updated, they'd have to show the revised date on it.
Right.
So people would know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Date right on the front. Very important. I hate things without dates. Okay, so that was the main thing I had. Did you want me to come to the next meeting on the 10th? I'm not sure. I guess it depends on where the process is, if the peer reviewer has any information.
It's helpful, so if they do have some additional information.
Right. Okay. All right, well, we'll be in touch. Anything else?
Nope.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming, Susan.
Yeah, no problem.
Who's next?
Do you want to go back to the minutes and all that, or?
We can quickly, well, not quickly, but I don't think we have any bills, right?
What is it?
We do. We have bills.
We have one bit.
We have a gentleman here with a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
I brought Chet Bannock here. He's a neighbor, plus 84 years old, and there's a couple of other elderly people here. They're having trouble hearing.
Okay.
You know, just if it was a couple decibels louder, I think that I could hear everything. You know, but, you know, if you just, I think if it was just a couple decibels louder,
Sure.
these older folks in their 80s would,
Okay.
Unfortunately,
All right.
this is not an acoustic.
Well, we can sit them up closer. a little
Closer
bit,
too would be helpful if they wish to, but
yeah,
as
I
well.
don't know, maybe, I don't know, a little speaker or something. Just
We can look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to talking louder.
That's a bill for the advertising for the recording secretary, which we were going to bring in for the September 10th meeting. Do you still want to do that?
Say that again?
We have one person interested in the recording secretary job. And we were talking about maybe bringing her in, not during the public hearing, but
Well, I think that she could come for the next meeting if we're going to discuss anything regarding the solar. It's going to be minor at best, minute, I would think.
Maybe both of you for the first meeting until we see how hers.
maybe what?
Maybe you both take minutes.
Well, we first have to decide if we want
Want to hire her first.
hire her.
Well, we don't have has anybody spoken with her credentials? Is she?
No, I think that's what Lillian's talking about. That
Right.
we want to come in and meet her and talk to her before we.
Oh, you want to bring her in for
Bring
us
her
to
in.
meet her?
Yes.
Okay.
No, then.
No, the first couple of meetings, yes, wherever we get, I would
Okay.
take the minutes at the same time. But yes, this lady lives in East Brookfield, so I'm kind of iffy about winter time. And I called her back to let her know, you sure you want this? Because it's at night, not during the day. And she said she was fully aware it was going to be at night. I'm still going to look and see if we have anybody else interested, or...
Well, our next, there's no reason why we can't schedule our next meeting at 5:30. If we want to sit down and meet with her beforehand, because the public hearing piece isn't until 6:15 anyways.
Right, so you'd be able to talk to her.
Will.
I will double check.
Yeah, let's do that. If she's willing to come out for it, then
Right.
that's the.
Okay, I will double check that.
As well as with school starting, maybe we can ask the administration at the school if there's a high school senior.
The only information I have about somebody at the school is when all the events start happening, the basketball games and everything else, they're gonna wanna be at that and not,
I think we
Not here.
meet with this individual, and it's something that we are happy with, and she's taken on the obligation, and as Lillian said, it is at night, she kind of explained a couple things to her, so she's fine with it, and she wants to take on that obligation. I don't have a problem if we're okay with her. So.
and if she, well, we have time before we have to post the meeting anyway. I'll find out long before that if she's definitely gonna be able to be here that day.
Right.
If not, then we don't have to
Just put it on
start.
there, so you don't have to put the individual, just or you can put the
Administrative.
individual.
Review it, applicant.
Right.
So we have one bill there.
But it's also important that Kathy does recognize that the meeting time has changed, because
Yes.
it's usually at 6 o'clock all the time, so usually you'll have to point it out to her, so at that point. So there's a bill here for Turley Publications. It was for the planning board recording advertisement that we put in the paper. It is for $65.50. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
You need to sign it.
Oh, great. We have minutes to approve?
We do.
We do.
We have two sets of minutes. There's two sets there. Pass that along, please. Two sets here. Two sets here.
Thank you. Tables are even too now.
Okay, you sign that? I'll take that.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 13th, 2018, as presented.
I have one change. I'll look up real quick. I wasn't paying attention. On the changes to the open space and recreation, I believe I left one out. I'm gonna go real quick. Yes, in between the, adding the paragraph on the village center district, on the bottom of page 3. After that, it should be the, deleting the paragraph on the municipal district comprises blah, blah, because we don't have one.
Say that again?
There was a paragraph in the original, in the 2012 open space meeting plan that said, the municipal district comprises 0.4% of the town and restricts buildings to only municipal and institutional uses. Minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet and frontage is 150 square feet. We took out the municipal district in the, it's not listed in our zoning at all anymore. So that paragraph needs to come out. That little detail was left out of the things we changed in the minutes, so that paragraph should be added to delete that. Is it clear as mud now?
So
As with changes.
I'll second the motion with changes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? No?
We should just zip right through the next one.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 21st, 2018 minutes as written.
I will second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Right here.
No? Is anybody opposed? No? One person abstained.
Okay. Now, another one on the administrative side. Jim, I have a memo I prepared for you for a joint meeting, requesting a joint meeting with the select board to fill the empty planning board seat. And that was the approved wording there. And seeing as you're on the planning board, I figured it should come from Jim. Or you're on the select board. It should come from Jim.
I'm on the planning board too.
You are too, yes.
That's nice, Jim. We're sitting right next to each other and you sent me a letter. But actually should be addressed
I didn't know if
to
you-
Steve Shinaki, the chair for the planning board. I mean, for the select board.
Instead of the select board?
It's usually, it should be addressed to him because he's the chair.
Okay, do you want me to change it
Yeah.
to that?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, Jim can't sign it then. And I need to get it to Kathy tomorrow morning. You want to be less picky about this?
Okay.
Okay,
I shall be less picky.
thank you. Just this one time.
But before you sign that, is there a motion to have Rob Chauvin presented to the select board?
Do we need to do that, or do we need to do that at the joint planning meeting?
Well, I think we need to agree if we're gonna propose
Yeah,
that to
are we in
the
agreement?
agreement that he's the person.
So I'll make a motion that we present Rob Chauvin as our candidate, if you will, and present him to the select board.
To fill the open seat.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No?
Can somebody get a hold of Rob and make sure he can make the
Yes.
next?
I
Can you do
shall
that?
make that, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Very nice, Jim, very
Did you
nice.
want to read it, or you want to read it? Just for ha-ha?
No, no.
Okay. So, that's the minutes. There's this one memo from Chris Martin. You may want to read, I don't know, so everybody else knows.
To all departments, from Chris Martin, Town Accountant, August 17th, 2018, FY 18 encumbrances. The last warrant for fiscal year 2018 was processed on, well, that doesn't actually say August, but August 17th, 2018. There will be no more warrants issued for fiscal year 2018. Please be advised that all departmental
Go ahead.
encumbrances will be due in the accounting office no later than noon, Friday, August 31st, 2018. Any encumbrances requests must be accompanied by documentation supporting the request. In the past, encumbrances that were allowed without supporting documentation, this will not be allowed this year. Additionally, no encumbrances will be processed unless there are sufficient unspent funds left in the account to cover. If you have any questions, please contact me at 467-7177. I don't think we have any.
I
Do we?
don't think we have any bills that I know.
Doesn't really.
Apply to us.
Okay, see, that was done. That's
That's just the close of the fiscal year for the town.
right. Okay. Now we have the finalizing of the edits to the open space. So what you have here is the potential final. I was to add in a paragraph that's highlighted about the updating the chapter 10 of the land use, which is on page 2 or 3, even though they're not really numbered that way, but it's highlighted. It says in the packet that says final on the top. Okay. And I based the wording there on the agenda, which you have at the very end of your packet, which is a single page, from that master plan public forum. So that's where all that fancy wording came from. And in the version 1 packet is the one we went through last time to make changes to. And those were all detailed in the July 23rd, or July 23rd, to the August 13th
So the only
minutes.
changes we've made is what's highlighted here, as well as the omission.
Well, we changed we went through that whole list that was in
Right.
the amended minutes there. With the zoning, making sure the zoning, things are right, and we changed the, in the RS district, instead of 95.8%, we said greater than 90%. And we added a VC district explanation.
Is there any reason why this prints out like this?
Yes,
That's
because I edited that. And I put that in just so you could, I was asking about this WSP, so you could see what it was. That's why that's in. That is not in the final document.
Okay.
That was just my way of saying, what are we doing here? So
Nice
you're
way
not
of saying.
looking at the final document there, you're looking at the one we talked about before.
So it's
We'll take the paper clip off.
There's two separate ones?
Yes.
Look at that, yeah. Version 1.
Version 1 is the
Very
one
good.
we made the changes to, and nothing more after that. We didn't make any changes to the 5-year action plan, so that stayed the same. So the only one you need to review this time is page 3, which is highlighted in yellow of the one on your left. There you go. That paragraph that's highlighted in yellow.
It's not really page 3.
Well, they're not numbered, but they're numbered to match.
I don't know. I'm just-
Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
All that, so what's highlighted in yellow is being added.
That's a whole new paragraph that's
Okay.
going in that wasn't there before.
That's all correct?
That's basically all they were really looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
And I took
Not
that,
not so much edits as updates, although there was some edits in there.
and I took all that order from the master plan public forum, which you have a copy there of the agenda. It's a single sheet. There it is, after that. Yep, so that's where I got the wording for the paragraph I put in. Are you okay with the wording?
Do we need to make a motion to accept this?
I would say to approve the final version of updates to the 2012 Open Space and Recreation. Do you want me to?
Make a motion to approve the final
Version?
version of the 2012,
Updates.
of the updates to the 2012 Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody who's opposed?
The last item, no, do you have anything else, Phil?
Nope, I think that's all I have.
This thing with Ray Brasso, building inspector, sent to us. I'll go meet with him and get more clarification and let him know whether or not he's got to come back here for a hearing for those items before.
So what are you gonna do?
I'll go back and talk with Greg, because it was a recommendation by the bylaw committee. And I just want to go back and clear it up with him, so that he can go back to him and let him know exactly what he needs to do.
So we're tabling this?
We'll table it for now.
Until a future meeting,
Until our next meeting.
till the next meeting.
So should we do this back to you?
You can if you want, so I'm not gonna make any more copies, so if you want me to hold them.
With that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Business.
I will second said motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Meeting is now closed.
Are you gonna keep your password?